Hi everybody, how are we doing? Jo here again. So time to grab that brew and let's have a crafty chat. Bit of a catch-up time. Things are a bit slow here, like you know, so sorry I've not popped in for a while. But we're moving in the right direction. My throat's much better and I can actually talk a bit, so still got the dreadful headaches, but hey ho. Today, I just wanted to pop in. I had a message from a lovely lady, Doreen Mack, and she asked me just for some nice ideas of how to use the forest scene stamp, just for beginners. And I do think it's important because, to be honest, you know, I mean, luckily I've taught a lot of workshops, and I always think when I teach people, I just teach a crafter. I never think the difference between a beginner, an intermediate and advanced, because to be fair, every time you use a new product or cover a new topic, you're actually a beginner at it. So really, I like to just treat us all as crafters. So it might be you're an experienced crafter and you think, oh, this video's not for me, and that's fair enough. But for me, sometimes I think it's not about being a beginner, it's about actually paring things back and just going back to simple techniques. And often if I'm in a rush or if I want just a nice stylish simple card, there's nothing wrong with that. Clean and simple is fabulous. So this it is I suppose a basic design, but like I say, I just thought I'd pop in with you and share it with you. I thought rather than just send Doreen a little message, I'd do it on here. Then we can all, do you know what? You can have a bit of crafty play with me. So just grab some paper and let's have a bit of a go. Now, this forest scene stamp, again, is lovely. I mean, I have used it in a lot of workshops. Really, I should put something white underneath, shouldn't I? So you can actually see. That's better. Now, as you know, I keep my stamps on the acetate because I use this acetate a lot. So what I thought I'd do, we'd start off with just a nice basic, and we'll do it together because again, well, I just think it's nice doing it together, isn't it? So if you've got your drink and maybe your cheeky biscuit, I'm being very good today. I'm trying to not have biscuits, but we'll see how long that lasts. We have got that Christmas word looming, haven't we? So now, this is what I thought we'd do. If I bring this in. And again, a nice, I think, stylish, great for beginners. It's so, again, you know me, I think we have things like a recipe. So the recipe for this is nice and easy. You could adapt it. If you have a different stamp, you could use a different stamp here. I've got to be honest, when I taught this design in a workshop, unfortunately, sometimes we do have to make condolence cards. And I think if you change the colours here, I mean, at the minute, there's a couple of greys I really like using. If you did this background here just in grey and stamped the trees, you know, you could pop this and put Thinking of You here. And I think that would make a beautiful condolence card. And especially for a male. Even if you just wanted a get well card for a male, I think this would be lovely. So we'll go ahead and create this. And again, that nice recipe. Now I'm going to use, this is a 14 centimetre square piece of card. And the reason I tend to use this is a lot of ladies, if they're worried about postage, this fits beautifully 6x6. Card blank, but as you can see with this, should you want to pop it on a 7x7, you can do. Now this, as I say, on a 6x6, pretend it's a 6x6. If you wanted a sentiment, you could pop a sentiment here. Sometimes we have those long sentiments, you could pop one there. But then if you wanted to mix it up a bit, you could always pop a sentiment there. If you really wanted to mix it up, you could carry on and do some landscape, add some blue and finish your hills there, a bit of green there and there, there and there. And even maybe stamp an animal here, you know, a little squirrel or bunny, and put your sentiment. So again, there's ways of making that design larger. So that's why I tend to go on a 14 centimetre. Now what we're going to do first is, I would always recommend, so if you say somebody who hasn't been stamping for long, you've just sort of been introduced to Lavinia stamps, I love the acetate because I can look at where that stamp's going to be without me having to stamp it. Now, again, my idea in my head when I got this was we want something nice, relatively, you know, clean and simple. I don't like saying easy, but relatively, well, easy. I can't think of another word, sorry. So I'm thinking, I'm a big fan of the moon mask, and again, this is just a piece of acetate, 6.5 centimetres, just because that's a lovely size. And I just drew round, because it's not quite circular, because I cut it out with scissors, I just drew round a glass base actually and cut it. But anything circular, I mean, again, I've got a water container here. If I wanted to make a smaller one, I could just draw around that. And I just use the packaging, acetate any packaging. So what I'm thinking is if I stamp that there, and don't ask me why, it's just something about me, I tend to think it looks nicer, but you could put it that side if you want. And I'm thinking if I stamp that there, and I love this edge here, and I'm going to put my moon mask about there. And what we're going to do first, we're just going to make this nice basic background, which again, a little recipe. And once you've made it, you know, if you had a day where, say, your mojo was a bit low, you could make a few of these and then stamp them up maybe another day. Now I'm coming in with oxide. It's just because the oxides are on my desk, and my desk is a tip. I couldn't fit anything else on here if I tried. So to save me getting anything else, I work with what's right in front of me. But you could use distressing, you could use your artistry ink pads, just a dye-based ink pad. Now I've gone for Faded Jeans because, to be honest, it's one of my well-loved ones, and I know it's quite pale. And what I'm going to do now is hold my moon mask on, quite near the top, look about there. Always come onto your moon mask first. And I know I say this again and again, but if it was quite a strong ink pad and you came straight off like that, you would have a line. So even with a faded one, I'm just going to always go onto there. And also you re-pick that ink up, look. And just gently. Now again, I know you can use, whoops, it just moved a bit. I mean, you could tape it down, but to be honest, you know, it's easy to just put back in place. I know you could use the VersaFine, but for me, especially if you're somebody who hasn't done this very much, the distress and the oxides are much more forgiving. With them being dye-based, they're easier, more blendable, and for me, I just think, especially when you're teaching it, you get a much better result, easier. But if you've done this a lot of times and you're happier and you want to use your VersaFine, by all means go for it. Now again, when you think you're happy, lift it up, look. Just check before you move it. Yes, I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to give that a wipe with my Inky Binky, my dirty Inky Binky, and put that to one side. Now I've got, so anybody who hasn't seen these before, I put a little dot of a gold Posca in the middle because it's quite see-through, obviously with it being acetate, and it's easy to lose or misplace. Now what I'm going to do now is just to add a little bit of colour around the end. So all I would do is get a little bit of colour, and I always start in the corner, and it's just circular motions, again nice and light, just to take a little bit of that white off. And I'm only going to come about halfway down. And I'm not going to come right up to here. I almost want a little bit of white there. So we've got a bit of contrast, dark, light, and then again, it'll just blend the whole thing. You see how it looks like a finished piece rather than that. Again, ink up on the corner. I always ink up on my corners because I want my corners darker. And I'm just going to come down to roughly where the sort of moon finishes. And that's just the basis for that. And as I say, this is a nice background that you could do again and again, depending on what other stamps you've got. I mean, I've got one here to show you that I very quickly did. Very similar look using, we've got a lovely reindeer. And again, turn that into a Christmas card. But it's all about, especially when you're starting off, if you've only got a few stamps, you don't need a lot. And this nice basic background, you can just do again and again and just mix it up a bit. But it'll give you the confidence then to grow and do sort of other backgrounds. There's lots of other techniques around, but we're starting just with the nice basic. And what we're going to do next is tear a piece of copy paper, and all you do is put your copy paper down and literally tear it like that, nice and simple. And then again, if you want to recheck, going to put the forest here. So I sort of need, if I put it there, I could do with my first sort of edge in my landscape there, couldn't I? So if I'm mindful and sort of put it about there, and it's quite straight, I want it quite straight. And I'm going to come in with crushed olive here because it's quite a nice sort of palish green. Oh, just dropped a pencil on the floor. So again, I'm going to hold it with this hand. And again, come onto the paper first. But again, this crushed olive isn't a dark colour, it's quite a light. I don't want it too much. I want this one a bit darker because obviously it's in the foreground, so it does look better if it is darker. So we'll add a little bit more and just hold this end, lift it up and look. And I think that's about, I want it quite muted, so that's fine for me. Now we'll add a hill, so we want it below the blue, don't we? So we'll put that there. And again, we've put it at an angle. Now I'm not going to ink up again because things in the distance, the hills are lighter. And if it's lighter, it just adds to that perspective. So let's have a look, lift it back. Too light, let's go back in. But again, because you don't take the paper off, and I know I've mentioned this before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but just in case there's anybody who's new to this and hasn't seen this technique before, remember, lift it up. Yeah, I'm happy with that, so I can take that away now. Now, I could, if I wanted, add a third. Now, I'm thinking, when I put my trees here, yes, I will see it, won't I? Just over here. So, again, I won't ink up, because this one will be even lighter. Just help to give that distance. I wouldn't do more than 3. Almost looks, dare I say, a bit pizza-ish. Yes, that's lovely. So, again, that's just adding to that basic landscape. Sorry, excuse me. So, what I would do is ink up again, and just like I did at the top, a little bit of blending up the side, just to meet where the blue is. And don't worry here that it's going to fill it in, because I'm happy with that. Bit more ink on the corner, and again, just up the side. And that will just... Now, if you're not used to blending, I'm just using the smoothies. You could use round blending tools. And I've got a non-stick craft mat just because the ink will glide. And there's ink on the mat, and then I can pick that up, look. And definitely less is more. Do practice, and it's circular motions. And I have to say, for me, I'm happy with that landscape. So now to the stamping. Now, me being me, I have to have, and I'm just looking for a clean piece of copy paper, because every time I do this, I have, my copy paper's a bit dirty. Such a professional, I don't know. So if I do this, look. So I just use, you can buy stamping mats, but I just use some copy paper, look, and a magazine. I just find that gives me extra oomph when I'm stamping. So what we're going to do is put our forest scene and plant it there. So I'm using the VersaFine Claire, and this is the Nocturne. Now for me, I find it easier to stamp this way on the side. That's just for me. And I'm using one of these, that it's a fine acrylic block, and it's from All and Create. And it's flexible, so it does help. This is quite a detailed, I couldn't think of the word, oh dear me, a detailed stamp. So you want plenty of ink, nice light tapping. And again, it will depend. I mean, I found sometimes, you know, my ink pads, especially these VersaFine, do seem to dry up quite quickly. So again, if it misstamps, don't be hard on yourself. It happens to all of us. So I want this slightly over the moon, because that'll just look nice, won't it? Don't want it in the middle, because can you see that just wouldn't look right? Offset it, and let's plant it there. Now again, always keep one hand on and move one around. Now give the ink time to soak into the card. And as I said, this is a very, very detailed stamp. Now with these blocks being flexible, quite often with a large detail stamp like this, any area that doesn't stamp, and I've got to be honest, I've got an area somewhere here that tends to be a bit tricky. So what you can do is press that area down and flex the edge of the stamp. The same here. And again, to be honest, I usually stamp, when I teach my workshops, I have to stand up. But obviously I'm sitting down because I'm talking to you. So me being me, because I'm a bit of a little pathetic lady. Now, I find, again, with these, for me, I find if I press in the middle and I lift this up, look. Now, there we go. So for me, it's worth doing that just to get that beautiful image. Look at that. Now, again, you have choices here. So for my finished one, if I bring it in, look. Now, there is a lovely set of flying bird stamps. You could pop them on. Or if you had the lovely little butterfly stamps, you could pop a butterfly on. If you just want to leave it to add a sentiment, you can. Now, I just like, for me, can you see here, I just like to take a black fine liner, and where Tracy's drawn as this lovely bit of grass, I just like to finish it off and almost add a couple more. Just for me, not too many, because again, I don't want it to be, you know, too pizza-ish, but just a couple more bits of grass. You don't have to do that. You can leave it as you want. But for me, a basic card, I think that is such a lovely thing to do. If you want to take it a little bit further, what I would do, oh, that's my black card. If I just put a little bit of the faded jeans, the blue, on the mat and bring in my fan brush, which is always in a pot of water, get a little bit of blue on, a little bit of blue ink, and just, for me, this just takes away almost the, it was almost too stark. Even though it's clean and simple, this just breaks up the background for me, and it literally uses a little bit of ink. I'm just going to clean that up with my Inky Binky. And there we go. And to me, that just finishes it off. But like I say, if you have the birds that you want to stamp, so Doreen, that's your basic, just a nice, and that simple technique you could do with lots of other stamps. Now, I have looked, and here we go. So what I've done as well is I just stamped, just to show you, check I'm in shot, I basically just stamped the tree, and this was on an offcut, so I've stamped it again, left it in black this time, just purely black and white, and stamped a lovely sentiment underneath it. So if I bring in my larger piece of card, so just to show you, now again, look at that. If you needed, and that would be, that's just another idea, and again, great for men's cards. Now that I've just left black and white. I think there's something classy about black and white. But if you wanted to do any of your inky techniques and do some, say, oranges and rusts in the background for an autumnal feel, that would be lovely. And then maybe stamp a couple of little leaves on here. So that's another idea for you. And I've just got one more idea to share with you before I go, so I'll move that to one side. So if you want to just go a little bit further, and if you're happy with what you're doing, which is great, you could do something like this. Now, just to show you the trees, you can stamp it. If I bring this one in, you can stamp it in a row, look. So obviously if you had a longer piece, you could stamp and make yourself a whole forest, and you can literally stamp it. Oh, that's somebody pinging, that's a message coming in. You can stamp it again and again. So for here, look, I've just stamped it a couple of times, added little pippin and a little bit of turned it into a Christmas design. Now the splats on here, I've done with a Posca pen. I'm a big fan of Posca pens. If you can get one, honestly, they are worth having in your craft arsenal. You have to shake them, but to add splats, to add colour, I love my Posca pens. If you don't have them, there's lots of other things. You can use liquid pearls, you can use glitter, you could also use some gesso or some white paint mixed with water and add some splats for snow. So that's just another idea for you. And last of all, just to give you another idea, I haven't made this one up, sorry, I ran out of time. But if you scroll through my videos, I have got a video on how to do reflections. And this tree would look beautiful. If you did, you could do a whole scene of them with the reflections here in the water. And as I said, I've done a whole video on that of different ways of doing that. My favourite is the acetate, but whatever suits you. So I'm hoping that's just helped you. And I'll bring in, which one shall we bring in? We've got a few, haven't we? So here's your basic, that hasn't got a black mat and layer. It'll probably look better if it has. So there's the first one, just as an idea. And then if I bring in, like I say, I'm running out of room. If I bring in these, just to give you little ideas, I'm not sure if we can get them all in. Anyway, if I pop them like that. So, little ideas of what to do with that stamp, and I hope that's helped you, Doreen, and I hope other ladies and gentlemen have enjoyed it too. So I'm not going to stay much longer today. Again, it's like this, if you wanted to add stickles, if you wanted to make it into a Christmas one, you know, we've just given you the basics, that basic recipe to start off, and then let your creativity flow, and you'll come up with some fantastic designs, I know you will. Okay, everybody, I'm going to pop off now. I'll try and get another video done later this week, although time is against me. I've got a few magazine commissions I need to do. Easter, can you believe it? Easter already. My goodness, where does the time go? Anyway, take care, everybody. And as always, thanks for your support. It means a lot. Love and hugs. Bye for now.